Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I'm your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and I'm sorry that this episode is a day late, having some literal last-minute tech issues last night. We had to push this a day, and this looks jankier than normal because I am still dealing with said tech issues.
We're janky. What can we say?
Just a couple of...
We're the janky boys.
Yeah. Neither of which of us are janky fans. So
thank God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What are they? 500 right now?
I'm just saying in life. I don't want to be a. I don't want to be a front runner bandwagoning fan, but that's just me.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
So we are like 10 days away from the draft at this point.
We're recording this on a Tuesday. Look at the calendar. It is next Thursday night is the draft. Night one.
It's 9 days.
Wow, that's crazy.
It happens so fast.
It's a weird thing because it always feels like it's one of those, the draft is so far away, and then all of a sudden, it's not like Christmas season where you start playing Christmas carols. It's just, here it is. Mm-hmm. And, we're on.
There's no advent calendar for the draft, but there should be.
Maybe notes to self next year, Just Giants draft calendar. Little chocolates in it for each thing.
Yeah, I guess just chocolate, right? Or is there...
You can put little chocolates in there. You can put, I don't know. We have a whole year to think about bottles. That. Well, if you're a Giant fan, that sounds pretty, little cyanide pills for each day as you get closer.
Get your preseason started early.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, so draft is right around the corner. I kind of, going really, really in depth on Giants Nation show with Bobby on certain position groups and, getting down to the X's and O's and nitty gritty on each individual player. And I kind of that's all awesome stuff. And I highly recommend listening to that if,
Sure.
Yeah. But just kind of taking a step back and just looking at the Giants, and they're sitting pretty this offseason, in my opinion. You feel free to chime in here if you disagree, but I think that they've handled this offseason in a way, and I feel like I said this before in past years with Joe Shane, they've handled the offseason in a way in which they are not forced to do much of anything in the draft. And I know that people are, well, they have to take a quarterback this year. They really don't. They don't. And I the rumor seems to be that they saved their jobs by pitching to John Mara that they are going to, take a quarterback or whatever. And I just don't know that that's true. I mean, that seems to be a rumor to me.
It seems like the rumor, but there's been really no evidence to support it. I mean, honestly, if they really pitched a plan that they have to get a quarterback and they said, Cam Ward is our guy, then either a trade would have happened to secure the number one pick, or there will be one by draft night. They're not doing anything so far to say I'm trying to save my job. I
would agree with that. Yeah,
they are building this plan out this offseason, kind of what they're. I mean, yeah, they took a swing at what's his name, quarterback, but they didn't make it like at all costs. They took a swing, they swung and they missed. Fine, let's move on.
They didn't even really miss so much as they just pivoted. You know what I mean? It's sort of like.
Well, they pivoted when he re-signed with the
Who are you talking about? Oh, Stafford. I thought you were talking about Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, they took a shot. I mean, they engaged in negotiations. They tried to make something happen, but they didn't, go for broke. If they were truly trying to save their job, the best chance to save your job is to win right now. And the best chance to win right now would be to get Stafford over a draft pick or over Aaron Rodgers or over whoever. And if they were really trying to save their jobs, they would have made an offer to somebody that could not be refused and be damned with the future. And they didn't do that.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, they might be trying to save their jobs, but what they're not doing is mortgaging the future to save their jobs, which is what everyone was afraid of. I don't want them to just, pull the trigger on whatever to save their jobs. Now, that might still happen in the draft. You know what I mean? It could happen. They are in a position. I'm sure they would like to walk away from this draft feeling comfortable about a quarterback that they took that would give them 4 years of leeway, right? I'm sure they would love that. I don't know that they're going to get that, and I don't know that they're going to force that. Now, if they do force that, we can reevaluate. But I haven't seen a single move this offseason that screams, you know, like negligence in the face of
Well, remember,
winning now.
if they're mortgaging the future, and if they got an assurance that they're staying, they'd be mortgaging their own future too. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so it's kind of like, no, I don't buy it at all. And to me, that leeway, I don't think there's one quarterback in this draft that says I have the next 4 years of I have leeway. Even as much as Cam Ward is the obvious, highest graded, most potential quarterback, this is
It's
not
not
Trevor
Andrew
Lawrence
Luck.
coming out.
Yeah,
It's not Trevor
exactly.
Lawrence coming out. It's not someone. It's like, okay, we're going to spend the next year or two or three building around this guy and nurturing this guy. They all have risks. They all are not surefire. And even a guy like Trevor Lawrence, to this point, has not been the surefire pick that we all thought he was. So I I don't buy the. I think they saved their job with a plan to rebuild this team, and I think everybody knew coming in when they came in that this was going to be a multi-year plan. And I think they've had more headwinds in those first couple of years that made this plan overall harder. I mean, the collapse physically of Daniel Jones makes that job a whole lot harder. The complete physical breakdown of this team the last couple of years made this job a whole lot harder. All these things, but I don't think anybody came in because we finally had a situation where we had a GM and a coach hired at the same time. They had to upgrade the building. They redid their analytics department. They made the front office more modern. They got rid of some dead wood. All these things, but this isn't basketball. You can change on the dime if you draft LeBron James. All these things had to happen. It's just going slower because of things that may or may not be in their control. A lot of it's not in their control. Some of it, drafts haven't been great, so it's been slower, but this was going to take a while. So I don't buy they had a beg on their hands and knees. We need to save our job. Here is the plan to. I think it's just continuing to do their plan. I think time is going to run out at some point when it feels like you aren't doing enough to do this. But I think right now it's still continue the plan. I don't think, you know, drastic measures like reaching for a quarterback to say, okay, quarterback, check. That's not happening.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I've seen no evidence of them trying to win now. So with that being said, they're in a position to use the draft the way it should be used, how winning teams use it, which is to gather the best players, not to fill holes. So with that said, the Giants have 5 picks in the first 105. That sounds stupid because I want to say 5 picks in the first 100 and 5 picks is just after this. But basically what we're saying is that they have a very, very hot 4th-round pick, very, very high, and therefore they kind of have 5 premium picks. Just focusing on the offense today, I kind of want to go through the position groups and see where you would like them to spend a premium pick. Because to me, a premium pick is even a 1st-round pick, even a 3rd overall pick. I am the dissenting opinion that says nothing about where you're drafted says when you should play. Nothing, which means a 7th-round draft pick, or say in the case of Russell Wilson, a 3rd-round quarterback can start on week 1. And in the case of some other people, a tackle drafted in the 1st round may not start.
Well, let's take that Russell Wilson one step further. A 3rd-round pick could start over a guy you spent a lot of money for in free agency. Everything has to change based on the situation on the ground. Losing franchises say, well, we did this back on August 13th, so therefore we have to play it out. So what happened?
So it's essentially like a losing organization pencils guys in with no competition, hoping that it's just going to work. And that usually includes the draft. In this case, they have some people that they sign free agents that you're going to pencil in as starters. If there's no depth behind those guys, that would be an instance where I'd be like, well, I don't really know what's going to happen with that. For instance, Russell Wilson. I mean, they did actually get Jameis Winston in there, so that kind of fills in that void a little bit. But Greg Van Roten, there's really no right guard plan after Greg Van Roten. And Greg Van Roten's like 35 years old.
They have a body right now to fill the spot for right now is what they have.
So I kind of want to go through and I want your opinion on if they should or should not consider using a premium asset on that position group.
Can I amend that slightly how we're going to do this? To
Sure, yeah.
say, for example, like we're talking about quarterback first, there's a little bit of a difference when they should be using that pick on this position. However, there may not be a guy that I think should be spent on a
Oh,
premium
yeah.
position. So I think there's two little ways we can look at this. It's like, yeah, the Giants are in need of spending a premium position on a quarterback. Should the Giants spend a premium position on Shedeur Sanders or Dart or anybody? That's how I'm going to look at this.
I mean, you can. To me, I think they probably should consider using a premium pick. If that pick is not 3, I think that's okay. As long, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to consider Shedeur Sanders at 34 or trading up from 34, I have no problem with that. And we can start with the quarterback. It's totally fine. You know what I mean?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. I do agree that they should probably be looking to come away with a quarterback with a premium pick. That doesn't mean force it, obviously. I think that it would be ultimately pretty good, but quarterback is such a specific among all positions in sports. It's just I'm not a big fan of wasting it, but it comes down to belief. And I have no problem using the 34th pick on some guys or whatever, but trading up, then you're using 2 picks, maybe 3 picks really to get up there. And I don't really love a lot of guys in this class. In fact, I like a few of them, and that's kind of it. But I do think that, like, even if you're looking at like pick 65, right? So you're in the top of the 3rd round. Kyle McCord is sitting there. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not a Syracuse guy. I'm not an Ohio State guy. I don't really know anything about Kyle McCord up until like this year. But just going through what I watched him, I was like, I see it. I see the things that people like about him. He's got the arm. He's got the timing. He's got the anticipation. He throws well. He commands the offense pretty well. There are issues that he's going to have, especially reading the field. Those are pretty common for people coming out of college. That's like one of the most common things for a quarterback coming out of college is not really seeing the field post-snap perfectly. That's kind of what happens. But at pick 65, who gives a shit? It's a 3rd round pick. Kyle McCord does not have to play year 1. No quarterback you pick this year will play. In fact, I'll say that definitively. No quarterback picked this year is going to play over Russell Wilson. I can almost guarantee it.
Unless for even if they make some sort of miracle trade and they get Cam Ward, or for whatever reason Tennessee sours on him and he drops to 3, where you would say he would still not be starting over Russell Wilson.
I mean, barring an injury, obviously. No, I really don't think so. Not week 1. I mean, Cam Ward, you might be looking at, week 5, 6 or something like that. I don't know. But there's no impetus to play him. There's no need, first of all. I don't think Russell Wilson will like it, second of all. I can almost guarantee you that he was hoping that or in some way had a discussion that it was, air quotes, handshake guaranteed that he would be starting all year or something like that. I can almost guarantee that. So but yeah, at pick 65, I'm okay with a premium pick being used on quarterback this year. Again, they don't even have to do it, though.
This is the way I look at quarterback, and the way even the roster construction is right now. To me, if I'm drafting a quarterback in the 3rd round, I have to say, is this quarterback a guy that's going to be I'm grooming him to be a starter and a good starter. And I think the risk of a 3rd round pick it's a little too much for me.
Well, see, here's where I disagree, because to me, a 3rd round pick, all bets are off. 3rd round pick is Matt Parrott. Matt Parrott is a perfect 3rd round pick. Matt Parrott had all of the measurables. But I'm just talking in general. A 3rd round pick to me is a gamble. So if you miss on a quarterback in the 3rd round, if he just doesn't pan out at all, who cares? That's what was going to happen no matter what position group you picked. By the 3rd round, once you're picking above 50, you're kind of just hoping they work. So I don't really care. I mean, I get what you're saying. You don't want to waste it, but to me, a draft pick is always a gamble, especially after the 2nd round.
I just think quarterback's a little different. I think it feels like it's more of the likelihood of success for getting a good starting quarterback at 3. And again, I don't have any numbers behind this. Maybe that's a research project for me. Is what is the likelihood of success as a third string quarterback versus other positions?
Who cares?
Well, I mean, because I think some positions like quarterback get drafted higher because of the need of the thought of that position. So lower, you might be able to get like a guard in the third round who'll be a greater chance of success than is he truly the 56th best guy picked in the draft, for
Well, but
example.
you just walked into my point, though, because the quarterback is drafted higher artificially all the time. If you're picking him in the third round, assuming you like him, right? We have to make that assumption, right? That
Right, of
there's like,
course.
um,
There's no
by
good
then
way
you,
we have
but
to take
that,
one.
but now you're not the one blowing your load on him. You took him in the third round. Who cares? That's your flyer round. That's what I'm saying.
I guess.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, but we've talked quarterback to death, I want to say, like the last 3 weeks. So I want to filter through this. Running
Yeah.
back. I think for me personally, once you get to the fourth of 105, if there's a running back up there that really just shouldn't be there anymore, should have been gone already, I'm okay taking it because Devin Singletary is probably last year with the Giants as this year. Tyrone Tracy's kind of an unknown, still has a lot of blocking to pick up in his game. He's also a slighter frame guy. We know jack shit about Turbo Miller. And Eric Gray stinks. That much we know about him is just untrustworthy. So I think it's okay at 105 if you want to swing. But I mean, to me, round 4 only, and only if somebody doesn't belong there anymore.
Somebody's on your board that you had as like a third rounder or something, a high third, and he's fell to 4. I think so. Because you're right. Just because on April 15th we're happy with the running back room, April 15, 2026 may be a whole different story.
Well, yeah. I mean, think of it this way: Devin Singletary tears his ACL. Yeah. Now our room is Tyrone Tracy, Eric Gray, and Turbo Miller. That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's nothing at all. So, yeah, and I would almost say that they're certainly going to bring somebody in at some point, but with just the positional value and what you can get from a running back, and like, I don't know. To me, Eric Gray is gone. Devin Singletary will be gone, and I don't know anything about Turbo Miller. I would want someone that I think has like pass block reps on film, like someone who can be a tandem with Tyrone Tracy for real, not just a body that you can get in the 6th, 7th round.
I feel like that might be a guy that we get like a free agent, a little older guy who's already shown those skills. But yeah, again, I like to your point though. I think if somebody they identify, they're like, I would love this guy if he hung around, and he was hanging around. I don't think they're reaching for anybody at 4 or reaching for anybody at 3. I think it's that type of situation.
So let's shift over to wide receiver, which is a position I'm sure you are dying to talk about. You have Malik Neighbors in there, penciled in as your alpha number 1 guy. Darius Slayton re-signs for 3 years. He's going to be the number 2 guy across from him. In this slot, you have Wan'Dale Robinson. Behind all of that, you have Jalen Hyatt, and then a bunch of nothing with, a returner in Smith Marset, a gunner in Ford Wheaton, and then big guys in Zach Pascal and Humphrey and D. Williams and stuff. So for me, I actually want them to spend a premium spot on this, but I think you and I are going to disagree on what. I would like a slot wide receiver to be behind Wan'Dale, and here's why. I think that there's a solid chance that Wan'Dale is going to get re-signed by this team after this year. And the reason is because I don't think that he has played to his value, and it's not to any fault of his. It's because the offense has stunk.
I think most of the guys of value on this team have not been of value because of all the reasons behind. They've not had a quarterback.
100%.
They've not had an offensive line. They've not had another receivers, all these things. So I think all the assets they've identified as keepers, I think, are undervalued right now.
Yeah, and I think Wan'Dale Robinson, for one reason or another, is like probably one of the most underappreciated guys on this team. And I'm not really a big fan. I wasn't a fan on draft night. I didn't like the draft pick at the time, but here's what I've seen from him that is remarkable. The dude just makes people miss, and that includes just taking hits and shrugging off tackles. The problem is that he's always catching the ball on 3rd and 9 about a yard away from the line of scrimmage, and he's getting about 8 yards, just barely not getting. Mm-hmm. I think that this year, if there's a legitimate deep ball from Russell Wilson as part of the offense, I think Wan'Dale Robinson fans are going to finally see.
He'll have that extra yard, yeah.
Well, because they'll only have to make one guy miss as opposed to 7 because they're all just crowding around. You know what I mean?
You know what Wan'Dale Robinson is? In your friend group where you have a lot of alphas, like, this guy is the life of the party. This guy is the clown. This guy is the drama king or something. There's always 1 or 2 guys in your friend group who are just there. Like, hey, we're going to a bar tonight. Joe is
Glue
always there.
guys.
Yeah, he's a glue guy. He's like, he's one of your friends. You really like him, but he doesn't stand out in a crowd. Like you go on a vacation or something. It's like, God, Joe he was fucking on this trip. He's just there. Joe, he pays his share. He's there. That's what Wendell Robinson is. Like you wouldn't kick him out of your friend group. It's like, I don't like this guy anymore. But he's also not going to be the one in 15 years going to have the memories of, this event. Oh, Wandell, he was so
Oh
great.
yeah.
That's what Wandell is to me. It's like, he's fine. He's great. He's part of my crew. He's part of my wide receiver room. I'm not gonna, go back and make YouTube videos about him in 20 years, remember when's, but I'm not getting rid of him either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a chance that he'll be able to re-sign for cheaper than what he's probably worth because of his just career trajectory with the Giants has been underutilizing him. But the other thing is that there's really kind of no backup slot receiver, and he's a very small guy. So I personally see Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton as your outside guys. In there is kind of Jalen Hyatt, and if you need somebody in a game, whatever. But also, I feel like midseason a veteran outside like Isaiah Hodgins type wide receiver is just available if injury strikes. Mm-hmm. In the slot, is that so true? I don't know, but with Neighbors and Slayton locked up for at least the next 3 years, personally, I would rather get Wandale's backup this year in the draft. And if you can't re-sign Wandale next year, then you have this guy waiting in the wings. And you're not forced to sign Wandale at market value if it's more than you're willing to spend on him. You know what I mean?
Well, the most important thing for me for these premium picks is, we're going to get to it, is offensive line. But you're not going to spend every one of your premium picks on offensive line. So where else are you spending this? And if we're making this an offensive only exercise, in spite of what you thought, I would be willing to go premium. I think if you have outside weapons, and I'm assuming this is going to be in tandem with getting our right tackle of the future. I think we're going to get him in the draft. I think we're going to draft pretty high for that. So we are not rebuilding from scratch an offensive line like we had to do 2 years ago. So if this was 2023, I would say my answer would be no. I don't need to spend a wide receiver right now. But now I think we just need like one, maybe two pieces in the offensive line before I consider it complete. I would take one of those picks and I would try to, give Russell Wilson or Jameis, give him the weapons now, or quarterback of the future, give him the weapons so he's ready. So I'm fine, going wide receiver.
I just thought you were gonna pull for an outside receiver, not an inside receiver.
I think if you can get the best inside receiver you can, you spend for him. I think we already have our premium outside receiver, and I think having, if we can get a good slot guy, and we can also, if it's not this year, next year, a really good tight end, that takes a lot of pressure off of having outside guy number two, because you have all these other things that you can, you have weapons for and different things you have to account for on a defense.
So let's talk about tight end. This is a weird one for me because I don't really know. So they took a swing on Theo Johnson, and I wouldn't say that he hasn't panned out because he was kind of a project. And where they took him, I thought was pretty good. I thought teams were going to overvalue him and think that he was more ready than he was. But I'm a big fan of that one. But it is going to take time to develop. Daniel Bellinger's in the last year of his contract, and I value Daniel Bellinger. I think he's a perfect, well-rounded, solid guy. He's not excellent at anything. You know what I mean? He's just pretty good at everything.
But he's upgradable.
He's upgradable for sure. And yeah. I believe he's done after this year, unless they resign him. They went out and they got Chris Manhertz again to be more the blocking guy. They went out and they got Greg Dulcich to be more of the receiving guy. It feels like for this year, and again, we prefaced at the top that they put themselves in a position to not have to do anything. They really can survive this year with that. You know what I mean? You have your you're hopeful with Theo Johnson, you have your rock steady with Daniel Bellinger, and then you have your specific role players in Manhurts and Dulcich. Are all of those guys upgradable? 100%. 100%. But do you have to? The collective four guys right there have you covered for the year if you just don't have the ammunition or if you find something to be more important. I, I'm I'm gonna just say like this. I would rather wait on the tight end this year if they run out of spots.
I do too, and I have two things I would do. I kind of want to table the tight end to who's ultimately going to be my head coach and offense coordinator on his team, and who's going to be my quarterback of the future. Right now, we have a stopgap situation at quarterback. I wouldn't bet my life savings that this coaching staff is going to be around in 2026 and going. We hope so, but I don't have a crystal ball, and my crystal ball is very murky right now. So I think tight end is a position where who are we going to bring in here? What coach is going to come here? Does he utilize a lot of two tight end sets? Does he like to throw inside? Does he like to have passing tight ends? What kind of quarterback are we going to get? Are we going to get a guy who, a guy who's going to be like a Daniel Jones and likes a deeper passing game, or one who's going to use all the field and more inside stuff like that? So to me, I think I'm waiting on tight end because I think it's kind of like to invest heavily in a tight end. I want to make sure it's a square peg in a square hole.
That makes sense. I can get behind that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then let's talk about offensive line. I'm going to split this into two spots here.
Yeah.
Offensive tackle and interior offensive line. Let's start with offensive tackle, and for me, they must get one with a premium pick this year. I think this is the only thing where it's like they don't need to in terms of like getting through 2025. They just need to for their own due diligence. Like I can't go another year where Andrew Thomas twisting his ankle torpedoes a season. I just can't deal with it. I can't deal with the musical chairs.
The Giants can't deal with it. I mean, you start playing musical tackle or musical offensive lineman, and it screws everything up. They can't do it anymore, and
it's terrible.
And I'd rather get a premium guy at an inexpensive draft cost than having to go out into the free agent market and getting some guy spending a lot of money. There's a lot of holes on this team that need to be filled. I mean, we have to move on from right tackle, and we need depth too. We need depth right now, and we need a right tackle of the future. So that's one of those positions where the most efficient way to do it is getting it in the draft. And if you have the position to have an elite pick to spend on it, go get him.
I mean, you're 100%.
Don't reach for him. Again, if he's your guy, go get him.
So the current situation is you have Andrew Thomas locked up for several years, but it's been, I think he's only had one season where he didn't miss a game due to injury in all this time. Jermaine Illuminar is in his last year with the Giants. He can play right tackle, right guard. He's backup left tackle at this point, but he is done after this year, and they got him on a 2-year, $14 million contract. I'm pretty sure he's not going to re-sign for a contract that low after this.
How old is he?
He's 30 maybe.
Okay. So if you're signing him for a 2-3 year deal, he's still kind of in his prime, but he's starting to get a little long in the tooth. And also he's fine. I'd like to upgrade the position over him.
I mean, I suppose I have no issues with Jermaine Illuminar. I think he'll probably lose some reps to like an Aiden Hutchinson, but who the hell doesn't? You know what I mean?
Right.
And again, if you're, it's still an upgrade if you get the exact same production from a 23-year-old.
Yeah, of course. So younger and cheaper, and yeah.
Yeah,
and exactly. Again, we're talking it through the lens of a premium pick. I'm not saying let's draft a 5th round guy and hope for the best that he's going to replace him. Yeah. This is like, I'm going to spend my 2nd pick on him, or who knows, something like that. So
I feel like I said this like a while ago, but like they really should be targeting someone that like other teams are like, he has to start for us next year at left tackle. End of story. You know what I mean? Like that should be the guy they're getting. That like I would love Jermaine Illuminor to remain on this team because he is so versatile playing left tackle, right tackle, moving inside to guard. He can do all these things and not embarrass himself. I think he probably is the best right guard on this team, but he is stuck having to play right tackle, which I'm sure he doesn't care anyway.
Right.
He's a perfect guy to have on this roster. He should be like your fourth or fifth best offensive lineman. Unfortunately, he's like our second or third. Probably our third behind Runyon, right?
I would say so. Yeah.
You need a guy that next year, 2026, is the starting right tackle, and you're excited about him. That's who you should be walking away from this draft with. Period.
Agreed.
Period.
Give me a year in the weight room. Give me a year in the playbook. Give me a year of getting some reps. You know, because again, somebody's going to get hurt, or there's going to be a blowout, or something. He'll get some exposure, so you don't have to force him in, and he's ready in 2026.
In the interior, they have John Runyon for this year and next year, I believe. This is the last year for Greg Van Roten. He was signed to a one-year deal. It's sort of a stopgap. They have and John Michael Schmitz at the center is still on his rookie deal. They have a ton of guys waiting in the wings. I would throw Evan Neal into this conversation a little bit. I know it hasn't officially been anything, but if I know Brian Dable and I know his training camp, Evan Neal will take some snaps at guard. I mean, it almost seems like they just throw a bunch of names in a hat and then just pull out whoever plays any position.
Are we a year away from the JMS conversation, or are we just gonna,
try
again year 3?
I think that we're he's gonna fall into that bucket as like some of the other offensive players that were added. You know what I mean? Like how good is Wan'Dale Robinson conversation where we're like, well, it's sort of an asterisk because the quarterback position sucks. I know center doesn't really have as much to do with it, but I think if you see a functional offense where it's like the one guy that's screwing shit up is the center, then you have your conversation. If suddenly his issues disappear, you know what I mean? Because like when your team stinks, you just notice every fucking thing that goes wrong. When your team is good, you can be like, well, this was a bad rep, but it worked out. You just write it off. And you also accept that football is a down by down game where somebody loses every single time. In a one-on-one matchup, someone's got to lose, even if that loss is a stalemate. You know what I mean? So I to answer your question, I think it's going to be after this year because you know what I mean? Like if Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both get hurt, then we're at the same fucking spot that we're at now, right?
Right. And this is going to be the start of his third year. I mean, he was a first round pick or second round pick. I forget. He was a second round pick, right? Okay. So there's no picking up his 5th year contract. It's picking up the 4th year. So the decisions have to be made after this year for picking up the 4th year.
No, I don't think it works like that. I think you just get it.
Oh, you just get the 4th year.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. But I mean, the decision's all the same. Like, I mean, it's not worth the dead cap hit to let him go.
Right. No, I'm talking about like, do you want to use the draft to possibly get his successor? Like, oh, we're kind of pot committed with him. We're good. Or maybe we should draft somebody to push him next year. I'm talking about 2026. Push him next year to replace him eventually. Like, we don't want to get rid of him because he's still cheap, but start thinking about life after JMS. We're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet. I think if you want to push him and like really start lighting the fire under his ass, like this is you got to start showing stuff. I think you just sign a veteran. You know what I mean? You signed a veteran free agent. It's like, look, this is your backup, but it's an open competition now. We're done with this shit.
Gotcha.
And that's me. In terms of the guard positions, I don't think you need to use a premium position, a premium pick on this. And it has nothing to do with like, well, I mean, I guess it does. You have 2 starters this year. You're fine. I think they have some interesting names in the wings with, I think Evan Neal at right guard could legitimately be interesting. Not just because I don't want to give up on him, just because the limited stuff I've seen is like, well, he just kind of bulldozed that guy. That was pretty good. Mm-hmm. I would like to see what Josh Azudu looks like actually playing the position that he plays, which would be left guard. And I also think that like Jake Kubis has shown us some stuff that I thought was interesting, not embarrassingly bad. Comes from North Dakota State where they just churn out offensive linemen. I mean, most of their offense is predicated on really, really creative run plays and stuff like that. So I do think that they have some interesting stuff that they can spend this year investigating, and then really worry about fixing all that shit up the year after.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Next week is our episode before the draft. We're gonna do this same exercise, but just with the defense. Hopefully, it will look normal when we do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about defense, and then I think any final last thoughts. It's
Mhm.
we'll talk about the schedule, what we're doing next week. I know you're going to be all over the place. On this show, on Bobby's show. Some surprises for me, maybe, you never know. Yeah, gotta shoehorn. This is a busy week, Grump. We have playoffs all over the place next week. We have the draft next week. This is one of my favorite times of the year, my favorite weeks of the year. So
Yeah,
we'll squeeze in some sleep at some point.
I was gonna say this is the month where I don't sleep.
Yeah.
So it's awesome, and then it's like it's a bunch of it's like an acid trip because I look back and I'm like, oh, remember that? And not really.
Sort of.
Kind of.
Very,
There's video evidence.
Sort of
like
do different colors like this, but you Ranger fans don't have to worry about sleep. You got plenty of rest. All you Net fans, plenty of rest also. So it's good for you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't even want to talk shit. I'm almost positive the Devils are going like right out of the playoffs. But
well, I expect a nice long run for my Bolts. Yeah. So who knows where I'll be going to be watching the draft Thursday night. I might be in Tampa for a playoff game or a Nick game or something. But Grump, I know where you'll be. You'll be.
I'll be right here in this chair, and I will be on the Giants Nation show for all 3 days of the draft.
Whew, how exciting! I'll have it in my ear wherever I am for sure.
Nice. All right. Well, with that, we will see you guys next week at our normal time on Tuesday morning, right before the draft, addressing any final draft things, our last thoughts, and looking at the defense and where the premium picks should be spent, if at all. Until then. Go Giants.
Go Giants.